North Korea is returning the remains of hundreds of U.S. soldiers killed in the Korean War. President Trump praised the move earlier this morning.
This moment, a plane is carrying the remains of some great fallen heroes from America back from the Korean War. They're coming back to the United States.
So far, it's just 55 men out of the thousands who were never recovered, and they will have to be tested to make sure they really are fallen Americans. But the move is giving hope to the families of the dead. David Martin is at the Pentagon.
One by one, U.S. soldiers carried the 55 sets of remains off the C-17 in front of a military honor guard, their fellow servicemen watching over the fallen as they passed by. In wooden caskets draped in United Nations flags, these are believed to be the remains of some of the 5,300 service members last known to be in North Korea.
It absolutely should not and must not be considered a trade.
Retired Admiral James Winnefeld says North Korea sees this act as a tool to make headway in negotiations with the United States.
It's clear that if the North Koreans are doing this as a goodwill measure, that they are serious, because they would not give up a bargaining chip as they view it, not as we should view it, if they didn't think there was the potential for progress.
I call it the wound that never heals.
Rick Downs was 3 years old when his father Hal left to serve in the Korean War. His Air Force bomber went down over North Korea in 1952. The pilot and navigator ejected and survived.
What did they tell you about what they thought had happened to your father?
They had no idea.
Was either of them able to witness the crash?
The navigator said the plane went down finally crashed over a hill, and he heard the ammunition going off. That's all. That's all we know.
Now he is becoming more hopeful, this time with a promise by Kim Jong-un to President Trump during their June summit to return remains from the war.
You have to really watch your heart here, because this all could just fizzle. This could be nothing. It could be everything.
For more on this story, we are joined by our own Vladimir Duthiers. Vlad, you recently traveled to Hawaii to visit the forensic lab that will analyze these remains. What did you learn?
So it's a really fascinating part of the Department of Defense. My producer and I, Nicole Bush, were in Hawaii to file a piece for CBS this morning on this very subject. And we walked into a room that was essentially filled with the remains of previously fallen soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines that have fought in all of the wars that the United States has participated in the 20th century, primarily in the Asia-Pacific region. And it is a joint operation. It's done by all the services. So the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army all send representatives to an excavation site where they are joined by forensic scientists and anthropologists, and they do a dig. The same way you would dig for any kind of remains, and you can see some of the pictures that I took here of the belongings of soldiers and sailors and Marines who fought in Korea.
So that's a good point, because when you say remains, it doesn't necessarily mean bones. It can mean a dog tag.
Well, I was looking at the photos, but so that's why I'm looking at that camera. But in fact, the reason why you don't see those bones is because they are there where I was taking those pictures. They don't allow you to photograph them.
I see.
Because where we're standing and where I'm taking those pictures of those dog tags, for example, you're standing on hollowed ground. You're surrounded by bones and full skeletons in some cases. In some cases, it's partial skeletons, but it is hollowed ground. It is a place where the fallen are resting, and so we try to respect and not show those photos. Yeah.
And this forensic lab is fully prepared. They're ready to receive these remains from North Korea.
So what I was saying is that it's really interesting that not only do they send all these four services, the four different services, out to the excavation sites, they provide, for example, if you're in the Army, they'll provide you a photograph, a biography of that fallen service member that you're going to go and find. There's a picture that I provided that has divers looking in the water for the remains of a pilot who was shot down, and they get to know that individual, they get to know his family, and so when they're out there and they discover the remains, it's really something very personal and very touching for them.
It really is. It really touches your heart thinking about these family members, hoping whether they will get something from their loved ones.
Yeah, indeed. They've been able to identify the remains, this forensic laboratory, they've been able to identify remains of service members going back as far as the Civil War.
Incredible. Vlad Duthiers, thank you so much.